in your presentation. Share. Share. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Can everybody see? Okay. Thank you, Batya, for the kind introduction. I just want you to pay attention to the two books I published on Vitka. One of them, the Hebrew one, is the historical book, and the research was conducted in Yad Vashem. And the other one, I was so fascinated by Vitka's actions and her personality that I've decided to turn her biography into literature. And the book really tells, for those of you who are not, maybe don't want to read historical details, so the Partisan from Vilna, the English version, is the story, the personal story of Vitka. It's written as a literature, as a literary book, and it's easier to read, I think, than the Hebrew one. So you're welcome to read it. It's published in Amazon. I met Vitka Kovner when she was about 80 years old. We met in a ceremony dedicated to Holocaust survivors in Beit Berel College. And we started talking during lunch, and she began to tell me about some of the things that she did during the war. And I said to her, Vitka, the story is so fascinating. How come nobody knows about it? And she said, oh, well, you know, I was busy. I was a psychologist, and that's why I decided not to talk about it. But if you want, please come to my house in the kibbutz in En Choresh, and we can talk, and maybe you can write an article about me. So I said, great. And then I came to her house in the kibbutz, and I kept coming to her house in the kibbutz for many years. And we met almost every week, and every week she told me a little bit more about her and about her actions. And as you can see, this is Vitka as a young woman, and the picture of the older woman is holding a gun of Abba Kovner, the pistol of Abba Kovner, in a ceremony in Yad Vashem when she donated the pistol to Yad Vashem, and the pistol now is in the museum. But she always emphasized that she never shot anyone. She always had a gun or a pistol, but she never shot anyone. She didn't have to. So this is Vitka. And she always said to me, look, I was the wife of Abba Kovner, and she never thought liberation from the label, the wife of Abba Kovner, who was a poet and a fighter, and he founded the underground, the Jewish underground in the Vilna ghetto. So she said, I lived in Abba's shadows, and it was good to be there because he was the most interesting man I have ever met in my life. So until she was really old, she never really looked for publishing or describing the wonderful and the important things that she did as a fighter and as a member of the underground movement. Vitka was born in Kalisz. It was near the Polish-German border. She was 19 when the World War broke out, and the conquering German soldiers tortured and murdered the town Jewish residents. When she saw what's going on in her town, she decided that she can't be humiliated and she can't stay there. And in the winter of 1940, she escaped to Vilna. And I'm saying escaping to Vilna, it was a very harsh winter, and she had to cross borders, and she almost froze in the snow, but finally she managed to reach Vilna. And as you know, in June 1941, the Vilna ghetto was set up, and the implementation of the final solution began immediately thereafter. About 40,000 Jews of the ghetto were slaughtered at Ponar up to early 1942. And in response to the murders, the FPO, the underground movement, was set up in January 1942, uniting several hundred youth movement members in Vilna. Vitka herself was a member of Shomer HaTzair, but as a young girl, she belonged to the Beitar movement. And she was the first girl who was accepted to the Beitar movement, because until she came to their activities, the Beitar movement refused to accept girls or young girls or women. So she was also the first young woman in the Beitar movement in Kalisz. So the Vilna ghetto was established in September 1941. At first, it had two sections, and the second one, the smaller one, was annihilated till December 1941. So they remained in the bigger ghetto. And the Judenrat of Vilna was established. In the center, you can see Yaakov Gans, who was the head of the Judenrat, and supposedly he collaborated with the Germans, but that's another story. Most of the 40,000 Jews who were killed in the Vilna ghetto were killed outside the ghetto in a place called Ponar. They were standing around these big pits, these holes, and they were shot and fell into these holes. Vitka was a fighter and a courier in the underground, and she operated outside the ghetto as well. And when I'm saying she operated outside the ghetto as well, unlike Lonka, she wasn't blonde. She had a dark hair, a curly dark hair, and she risked her life by leaving the ghetto, getting out of the ghetto, and going to dye her hair at a hairdresser outside the ghetto. At first, she tried to do it by herself with her friend Rushka. Rushka tried to dye her hair, but it wasn't successful, and she realized that she needs a professional job. So she went to dye her hair, and you can imagine that in those days, women didn't dye their hair, so dyeing hair was really risky. And actually, she was the first woman in occupied Europe to execute an attack against the German army. She would leave the ghetto in the spring of 1942. She would leave the ghetto and search for a place where to put a bomb that will destroy German trains with soldiers or ammunition going to the war with the Soviet Union. So she would go every day by herself. She would go out of the ghetto, come back as this blonde girl. She was almost caught once by a group of German soldiers. And when she was caught, so she started crying, pretending to be a peasant girl who lost her way. And the soldiers helped her to leave the forest or the railroad and escorted her out supposedly to a safe place. So she, on the night that they decided to to put the bomb, she was accompanied by 3 guys, and she took them. They came out of the ghetto for the first time, and she told them where to put the explosives, and the bomb exploded, and a German German train just blew off. And so this was one of her main actions while being in the ghetto. As the September 1943 date for the annihilation of the ghetto drew nearer, the underground command, at that time Abba Kovner, decided to escape the ghetto and join the partisans. Vitka, she led the group that left the ghetto for the Rudniki forest. She didn't know exactly how and when, but somehow she managed to find the place of the partisans' camp, and she led the group to the partisans' camp. If not her, they would probably be lost in the forest. In Rudniki forest, she commanded a scouting unit that left the partisan base daily to find appropriate sites for operation. And she also participated in numerous actions against the Germans, including the well-known transformer. They put a bomb near the Vilna transformer and shut down all electricity in the city for quite a while. And also they managed to stop the water supply to Vilna for a while. In another operation, she rescued dozens of Jews from the Kailis labor camp near Vilna and brought them to the partisan base. And these are only a few of her actions, because we have only 15 minutes, I can't tell you about all her actions. In the summer of 1944, she participated in the conquest of Vilna with the Russians, with the Red Army, and her scouting unit was the first to enter the city. The Red Army sent her to check if there are any Nazis still active in Vilna, and she went there and came back and said, now the army can go in. Okay, so she was one of the first partisans who entered Vilna right after the surrender of the Nazis. After the war, when the war ended, she became also a member of the Nakam organization. The Nakam organization thought to avenge the slaughter of Jews by conducting mass sabotage operations on the German soil. such as poisoning water sources. But they didn't really succeed. It was hard for them really to do everything they planned. The only thing they managed to do is to poison. They managed to put some poison in Nazi soldiers' prisoner camp. They poisoned the bread. A few soldiers, we don't know really what happened, but apparently a few Nazi soldiers got killed, but there was not really a mass killing of the people there. Anyway, Vitka and the rest of the group escaped Germany and reached Palestine in June 1946. Here's a picture of young Vitka, and when at the time when I used to interview her. Since she always, first of all, perceived herself as the wife of Abba Kovner, and of course, her grave is next to him. So I think that if I wouldn't, I mean, her actions were known. It's not that they weren't known, but she always belittled her actions, and she didn't want to be in front. She didn't want to be remembered as a very important and a very courageous fighter. But still, the Red Army gave her the most important medal for courage and bravery. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Miri, for introducing us to the story of Vitka's activities, which probably would not have been revealed without your research. We still have a very few minutes, and we will open the floor for just a few questions from the audience. So, Miri, can you stop sharing, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions to the presenters?
There are some in the chat.
Can I say something?
Who's that? Yes.
Hello, my name is Yuval Alpan, and I also belong to the Commission of Citation for the Bravery of Jews, who saved Jews during the war. And until today, I'm not in the correct figure, but we have given to 640 women, men and women, we gave the citation. But out of them, about, I looked now through the graph I have, Excel, about 200 women. So it's about third. Also in the Zionist youth resistance movement in Hungary, I don't know why Lili Zamir said that was a small underground. It wasn't. It was a very big underground. It was more than 400 people, around 1,000 altogether. Some of them we never knew what they did. And out of the 474 people who are mentioned in our website, I counted now 95 women. So it's about the same ratio. So 1/3 of the people who were in the resistance were women, and they had a very, very important role, because they were women and they could disguise as Gentiles. And for men, it was much harder. And I hope that one day we will have time to speak about Hungarian resistance women, what they did, and how they helped to save thousands and thousands of lives of Jews.
Thank you very much. It was a very important remark, but just you have to understand that in 15 minutes you cannot cover everything. So
Tell me about it.
any other remarks, questions?
I would like to say something about number of women, all in all. Not only Jews saving Jews, but also non-Jews who saved Jews and others. Women were usually in a larger number because unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, depends whom you are asking, but there were no men. If there were non-Jews, there were most of them in the battlefields. If there were Jews, they were already taken away. In Hungary, they were taken to forced labor, and you should know it better, Yuval. So the huge or
I know it very
large
well.
number of women, it depended also from the very dry fact that there were no men. So for the simple manner of who was around, there were women.
But there were refugees. There were refugees from Slovakia and Poland in Hungary, a lot of them. And they joined the resistance, men.
But you are not referring to my point, but never mind, Yuval, I don't want to argue you.
Okay.
But the point is not only with Hungarians, Yuval, but all in Europe, occupied Europe, there were no men. That's also, if we look, why more nuns than priests helped Jews and non-Jews, because there were more women. And always during wartime or after wartime, we can see it sadly in Israel as well, we have a very huge difference in the numbers of men and women. So what can you do? That's soldier reality.
Thank you, Lily. Any other question, remark from the audience? I recommend you to look at the chat because people are telling about bibliography, and also we have a call for paper presenting there. Okay, if we don't have any questions, I would like to thank the speakers, and it was really enlightening session. I learned a lot, and I'm sure that all of you enjoyed it as I did. And we will see each other in the next panel,
which is going to be unlike this one that we had. Most of the speakers were Israelis. The upcoming panel will be different. So it's also a variety of nationalities and not only themes and subjects.
And thank you to all of you for joining us. For some of us, it's very late, I think, and for others, just the beginning of the day. So have a good night or have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. See you all. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.